Well, Bjorn, thank you very much for your presentation and for sharing with us your concerns as well as your optimism in what concerns a sustainable world. I think that we have plenty of things to think of, and BCSD Portugal is deeply committed towards that process. Now, Phil, the floor is yours.
Bjorn, thank you. My goodness, I feel inspired by what you've just told us, how clearly you've been able to describe the challenge that we face as humanity. So thank you for doing that. And in fact, I really don't know what more I have to say now. Perhaps I should just finish, but I'll carry on. So let you read for a second this recent clip from the press. And now, let me tell you how recent this clip was. So, it says here, mankind cannot handle more. And in fact, mankind can handle more and has to handle more. And in fact, I'm not blind to the challenges that we have as humanity today. But I am very optimistic and very hopeful about how we are facing up to this. And I completely agree that this is not about one person or one leader standing up and making this change. This has to be for every single one of us individuating and figuring out our own paths, and through that coming together again as humanity. When I was preparing for this speech, this phrase came into my head. The answer is unity. Now what's the question? And let me talk a little bit more about that as we go into this process. So this was announced just this year, that the two arch rivals, the two biggest competitors in the world of confectionery, are now sharing distribution channels. And the first time that a Mars lorry showed up in a Nestlé factory, the employees were totally amazed. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. And this is this picture. The answer is unity. Now what's the question? Of course, in Europe, as the challenges of the financial crisis really start to bite hard, what they're saying is what we have to do is unify further, not fracture. And my goodness, this is hard work. This is really testing the systems and the people. I was in Egypt in April this year, and on the last day I was there was a story from a local town where there had been a lot of violence between the religious groups. And in fact, that still continues today. But on this particular day, on the day that the Muslims went to the square to pray, the Christians followed them and held hands in a circle as the Muslims prayed to protect them. And at the end of the day, when the Christians went to church, the Muslims of that town followed them and went and held hands around the church to protect the Christians as they prayed. Now, this was a response based in love to a situation very clearly driven by fear. And their world in that moment just got significantly bigger. As I say, the challenges of Egypt are not finished. The challenges of the Arab Spring are not finished. There's much more. But I love the fact that these pockets of hope are springing. So this is my colleague, Richard Barrett, and in his book, his last book, he wrote, the problems of existence have become global, but the decision-making structures we have for dealing with them are national. We cannot move forward without a high degree of global cooperation. So we're really just talking about the same thing. In June, I was invited to take part in a global summit at the Vatican. And the good news is that the Catholic Church are also getting behind the shift of consciousness on the planet, not as a religious movement, but as a movement to support the transformation of humanity. And there were people from many different religious groups there. And this phrase came up: goods that are really good and services that truly serve. And this, for me, in two very short sentences, captures the essence of our challenge as businesses on the planet. If what we produce are goods that are really good, and if we create services that truly serve, then this really, I was totally inspired when I saw this phrase, and it captured for me the challenge in two very short sentences. Does anybody know who this guy is? His name is John Elkington, and John is really known as the father of the word sustainability, and in fact he also created the idea of the triple bottom line: people, profit, and planet. And very recently he was commenting on a report that had just come out, and I'd like to just read a little bit about what he said. The fact that 81% of 766 CEOs interviewed around the world in 2010 by Accenture for the UN Global Compact thought that they had already embedded sustainability, it set off serious alarm bells in my head. Properly understood, sustainability is not the same as corporate social responsibility, nor can it be reduced to achieving acceptable balance across economic, social, and environmental bottom lines. Instead, it's about the fundamental intergenerational task of winding down the dysfunctional economic and business models of the 19th and 20th century and the evolution of new ones fit for human population headed towards 9 billion people. So very much the same message. And I think that the moment that we think we know the answer to what sustainability is, then we're stuck. We get stuck in that moment. And what I love about the plan that we just saw, Vision 2050, it recognizes that this is a long-term process, and right now we don't know the answers, because that's true. There's a lot of answers that need to emerge. So what I want to do is show you a little bit of our part of how we're helping to create cultural sustainability and what that means. I just want to share with you for a second what is culture. And I'm going to show you the measurement of two different organizations. So firstly, here's the first organization where we ask the employees, select the 10 values and behaviors that most reflect how your organization currently operates. And the employees of this organization said, well, our organization stands for client satisfaction, making a difference. You can read these words. And then we asked another organization in the same industry, working with a similar number of employees, with a similar size portfolio, working under exactly the same market conditions. And their employees said, this is what our culture looks like. Now, the white dots on this picture, each word gets one dot. The white dots stand for fear. And they are blame, short-term focus. You can see these words on here. And we know that in a current culture picture, 2 white dots will be undermining the ability for that organization to serve its customers, have happy employees, and do whatever it needs to do, and it has a major impact on its ability to be sustainable, because it's an organization that's driven by fear. And so I would ask you, which one of these two organizations would you prefer to work in? Which one of these two organizations do you think would be better at just doing these basic stuff of running a business? In fact, this business on the right-hand side is not just unhealthy, it's toxic. And people will be getting physically sick in that organization, and mentally sick as well. And we see this all the time. That's not a sustainable situation for your employees. And unless you can create that for your employees, it's impossible to create sustainability through your products and services as well. So what are we doing here? And as Richard says, for the first time in history, we have the possibility of making the evolution of human consciousness conscious. Because we can measure it, we can manage it. And that's what we're supporting organizations in doing in countries around the world. And in fact, you'll be able to pick up a copy of this report today. Last year, we were very happy to support the BCSD Portugal in a project with a number of middle managers from a number of your member companies in really understanding what cultural sustainability means and creating a new dialogue. Because the measurements that we produce are never the truth. They're just a start point for a new dialogue. And so this report, I'm very happy we supported this because some fabulous things have come out and some new understanding, and this is available to you. I don't have time more to talk about it now. So where did this model come from? How many of you are familiar with Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Just enough for that there, thank you. And so before Abraham Maslow died, he said people don't really understand what self-actualization means. And my colleague Richard Barrett, when he was the values coordinator at the World Bank, expanded this model through these steps, levels 5, 6, and 7, to expand the idea of self-actualization and describe them in a way that's very clear to organizations. Now what we do is we ask these simple questions. Select the 10 values and behaviors that most reflect who you are. We want to know who the people are, what's most important to them. Select the values that to reflect how your organization currently operates. And select the values that you would desire for your organization to achieve its highest performance. Now, I just had a piece of paper in it. Oh, here it is. So what I want to do is very briefly describe to you how this works through a story. And I want you to imagine walking into an organization and experiencing that organization. Imagine a company that is conscious and fair in the way it sets prices and pay. Because it's moved beyond fear-driven greed, it's now profitable, financial, and stable, and creates a good, stable shareholder return. It also provides safe and comfortable working conditions for its people. When people walk into the office each day, they smile and greet each other warmly. There's a healthy sense of respect, and customers feel well looked after. The organization invests in high-performing systems. It trains its people to be excellent at doing their jobs, and the staff are proud to tell others who they work for. This is an organization that moves forward through innovation and continuous improvement. It has the adaptability and resilience to weather tough times. People feel empowered and have the courage to ask tough questions. It's okay to make mistakes. People feel inspired by the vision and values. There are high levels of trust and a deep sense of purpose, fun, and team spirit. This is a collaborative working environment for staff, customers, suppliers, and the community, where people focus on win-win for all concerned. The investment in leadership development means that leaders are making a sustainable difference inside and outside the organization. For this group, ethics is not about compliance, but truly doing what they believe is right deep down in their hearts. There is a knowing that by doing their jobs, people are serving society and future generations. And so that's the foundation of how this model is created. And in fact, if we overlay the triple bottom line of sustainability, what we find is it matches extremely well. We have level 1, which is the survival level, which is creating that profit, that economic stability. At level 6, this is around the environment. And so we're looking at the planet, and at level 7, being of service to society. But what about the other levels? And in fact, many organizations are now using the 7 levels as a more comprehensive view of creating sustainability. So let's give you an example. If we've got all the levels covered except level 2, we all hate each other, and the boss is the nastiest person you could imagine. What we've done is we've just damaged the fabric of our organization in a critical way. In fact, when that happens, some of the things that go above there would also become much less healthy. But this is a model now that's being used in many countries for helping them get deeper into understanding what sustainability is really about. I want to show you one key number that we have and the impact of that key number. So this is a real organization on the left-hand side that says, these are our core values. This is what we live by. And when we measured them, it's true. These are the words that the employees recognize. And I would bet my mortgage that the reason that the employees recognize it is because the leaders are living these words every day. And then we look at this organization here that says, these are our core values. And then we ask the employees, so how does this actually operate? And we see a picture that's remarkably different. And when they talk about meritocracy, actually what we have, the truth is what we have, is arrogance and hierarchy, which is the complete opposite. Now these numbers down the bottom, cultural entropy of 9% and 37%, this is the degree of dysfunction. This is the degree of harm and decay and destructive behavior within the system. And we know that from measurements of thousands of organizations, we know that less than 10% cultural entropy is healthy. When organizations go above 40% cultural entropy, they fail. They go bankrupt, they implode, it stops happening. And let me give you a real example. Actually, one thing I'll talk about before that is, this is a real example of a large European corporation where this was the culture that the employees said, this is how our organization currently operates. And we did some work with a leadership team, and they figured out that what we call their cost of fear was about 5.4 billion euro per year. And so there really is a financial aspect, a financial sustainability aspect to this as well. So in the summer of 2008, we were asked by the Icelandic government to measure the values and culture and consciousness of Iceland. And this was the result we saw. Cultural entropy of 54%. Interestingly, we measured Denmark at the same time with a cultural entropy of 23%. Richard Barrett was on Icelandic TV delivering the results for this assessment, and the interviewer said to him, so what would you say? He said, if you were a corporation, I would say that you're just about to go bankrupt. And 2 weeks later, this happened. Now, that's not the end of the story, because what's happened now is that the government has selected 1,200 people from the electoral register of Iceland and created them as the new National Assembly. And they're using the results of the values assessment to reconstruct the way that they run a country and the way that they look after their people based on the values of the Icelandic people. And the other part of that story is that in the February after the big crash in Iceland, 2 of the 3 big banks called us and said, we got it seriously wrong, and we have to start again. And we have to start by measuring our values and rebuilding based on our values. And we're working with them now to support them in building their sustainability again through the values and being truly Icelandic and being human beings. This is a story now of a bank in South Africa. It's Nedbank. And what I love about each of these stories is that you see the individual. So the chief executive of Nedbank absolutely had a vision for this transformation and how this is going to work. But he couldn't bring that alive unless he truly engaged with the 30,000 employees of Nedbank. And so it was both an individual story and a collective story. And what you see, these red words going down over time, and the entropy dropping, is about real work. And if you imagine that you can transform an organization in 1 year, if you imagine you can transform a nation in 1 year and say, okay, 2012, we're going to transform our organization, and 2013, we go back to doing business. No, it doesn't work that way. This is, once you start, you don't stop. It's an ongoing process. And in fact, it's an ongoing process for them as well. And in every measure of what we would consider sustainability to be, this company is leading South Africa. And of course, however sustainable one organization is, They can't possibly be sustainable within an unsustainable world. So there's a bigger picture to play. And let me tell you the next part of the story. Nedbank were one of 6 companies in South Africa where the chief executives said, things aren't changing fast enough in South Africa. We think we can make a difference here. And let me just tell you, corporations have very, very little idea about the power that they have to create positive societal change. Corporations have very little idea about the true power they have to create societal change. And this is a story where this is happening. And it's happening in many places around the world. So Nedbank, their chief executive, got together with the chief executives of these companies and they said, we're going to support the measurement of South Africa. And they said, the government's not doing this fast enough. We think we can help. And within a month of this discussion starting, the government said, oh, can we be part of this as well? And so the government is now central to the dialogue of this transformation. Now, we just, a few weeks ago, published the results of the South African National Values Assessment, and here they are. All the National Values Assessment work we make publicly available, so I'm not going to talk about this too much, except to say something very interesting in here, which is that if you looked at the demographics between the blacks and the whites in South Africa, you'll find that the blacks are very much happier right now than the whites because of the transition to positive discrimination and the black economic empowerment programs that are running. So if you just looked at the results for the black people, you'd be looking at a cultural entry of about 38% rather than 62%. So once again, we're looking at how humanity needs to come together, but we're made up of individual people and individual groups that also need to find their own place and how that's going to work. So I want to finish with this idea. And I wonder how many of you in the last couple of years, in your roles in your organizations or how you see society or how you see sustainability, are having unthinkable thoughts. Thoughts about a new project, or thoughts about strategy, or thoughts about an entirely new direction that you couldn't possibly tell to your colleagues or you couldn't tell to the board because they will think you're nuts. They'll think you're stupid. But these unthinkable thoughts are the thoughts that are now necessary. We have to recognize that the current systems are not working, and if we try to find the solutions within what we already know, then we're not going to get very far. A short story about ideas and innovations that are discontinuous with history. About 18 months ago, we had a call from a client to say, we'd like you to produce this new product for us. For us, this was an unthinkable thought. It was completely contrary to our belief systems. It would actually blow away our possibility of making profit within our minds because we were going to be giving away too much. And we finished the call with the client and we said, we're really sorry, we're not going to do it. And then 10 minutes after the call, I sat down with the team and I said, okay, if we were going to do it, how would we do it? And what benefits would it bring? And within 10 minutes, we knew that we had just created a new product. It took us 18 months to deliver it because we had to research it. But we knew within 10 minutes we had created a new product that was going to transform the way that we did business. For us, it was a completely unthinkable thought. And so, as these unthinkable thoughts emerge, please have the courage to start to explore them, because the answer is in there. So, I did some research before I came here, and I watched the presentation that we just saw. And this slide really talked to me. And I want to talk about just one part in your slide and how powerful it is. It's this piece up here. One world, people, and planet. And frankly, this is the truth. This one statement is the truth that underpins all of the other activity and all of the other projects and all of the other unity and coming together of everything else inside of here. And until we recognize this single truth and start to operate that within our businesses, we're very stuck. And so the paradigm of competition, of one that's about creating division and destroying, has to go. And the paradigm of competition that's creative and creates new innovations and excellence absolutely can stay. But it takes a paradigm shift. It takes a change in the mindset to create that. I want to finish with my deepest belief about what this work is really about. About 10 years ago, I walked into a friend's kitchen, and on their fridge was a fridge magnet. And here it is. The purpose of our lives is to be happy. And at that moment, I knew that what I had seen was both a profound truth and something that was paradoxically so simple, yet so incredibly difficult to achieve. And I've done a lot of work on thinking about this. And I've now defined happiness is the extent to which you live in love as opposed to living in fear. And all those white dots on the charts, blame, bureaucracy, greed, all of that is fear showing up within our organizations and within our nations and with our human groups. And when I talk about love here, I'm not talking about the soft, fluffy, romantic love. I'm talking about a love that when you truly know what's right in your heart, you can take courageous steps to transform your organizations and your nations. And you come from a very different place. Now, this takes an enormous amount of courage. So, I'm very happy to announce, and I know that you already said this morning, but I'm very happy to announce that this book, written by my colleague Richard Barrett, and translated and published now by Bernardo. Where's Bernardo? Wave your hand. Thank you, Bernardo. So, what I didn't get into was very much of the how do you actually do this and how do you make it work? Well, this book, I have a copy here. This book is available to you. It's been published now, and all you need to do is to fill in this little voucher here and hand it in at the back, and you will get a free copy of this book. And Bernardo and the team that's made this possible, thank you so much. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Well, Phil, thank you very much for sharing with us, I'll say, a kind of thoughts that people really like. Love, happiness, no fear. So I think that all of us will have enough food for thought in what concerns the organizations, how the organizations can be changed, and again, towards a sustainable future. We have ended up this first stage of our session today. We need to leave the stage for the first panel. E, portanto, vamos dar início ao primeiro painel Energia e Clima. Muito obrigado.